Hello, tonight on Business Live, Ghana's program with the IMF is expected to be submitted before Parliament for scrutiny and approval.
Let me tell you that if we remember the presentation of the budget in Parliament, I think it was November 24th or around that date, the minister expressed that the government was in discussions with the IMF.
Ahead, we will engage a senior finance lecturer on that. Also in this bulletin, President Akufo-Addo calls on African countries to work together in the development of agriculture to drive intra-Africa trade for economic growth.
Like the vision of our forebears, the AFCFTA has set the stage for Africa's industrialization and transformation. What is required now is for our respective governments and businesses to show bold leadership.
Details of these and many more shortly this day. Welcome to the program. I am Pius Kojo Baka. To our very first story, Ghana's program with the International Monetary Fund is expected to be submitted before Parliament for scrutiny and approval. Now, some MPs have questioned why the program document has not been laid before Parliament. Representative of the IMF, Dr. Leandro Medina, has been given more details on the government's next line of action. He spoke on PM Express Business Edition.
First of all, in terms of the strength of the program is quite strong, and if implemented as planned, it will get Ghana out of this crisis, get the debt sustainable, and it would lay the foundations for inclusive growth. And the policies are the policies that are needed and reforms that are needed to get us there, and we have seen a very strong commitment from the authorities. In terms of the consultation with stakeholders, every mission that visits Accra, we meet, of course, with the authorities, we meet with the Minister of Finance, we meet with Bank of Ghana, we meet with banks, we meet with the civil society. We have met with TUC, we have met with GUTA, with the unions. We meet also the opposition in the context of the Parliamentary Finance Committee. So in that sense, we are comfortable that we have been consistently.
You have the buy-in of all these actors.
With all the relevant actors in Ghana, where we have been able to, not only to explain what we are really discussing and what are the aims of the discussion, but mostly to hear their concern, which is extremely important for us to hear the concern of the different stakeholders. And then finally, you mentioned parliamentary approval. My understanding is that a memorandum will be prepared by the government of Ghana and will be sent to Parliament, mainly explaining that a new financing from the IMF has arrived and how this financing will be used. Let me tell you that if we remember the presentation of the budget in Parliament, I think it was November 24th or around that date, the minister expressed that the government was in discussions with the IMF for support. This was presented, it was discussed in the context of the presentation of the budget. And then, as part of the prior actions, the Parliament has actually passed certain revenue measures. So in that sense, the Parliament is well informed.
All right, so we shall visit the story later on, but let's touch on this story quickly. And President Akufo-Addo has called on African countries to work together in the development of agriculture to drive intra-African trade for the economic growth. According to him, such a move would enhance continental integration. He said the African Continental Free Trade Area could be a key game changer in advancing Africa's growth if countries commit to its principles. President Akufo-Addo was speaking in Accra during the opening session of the 7th African Leadership Forum.
Like the vision of our forebears, the AFCFTA has set the stage for Africa's industrialization and transformation. What is required now is for our respective governments and businesses to show bold leadership. We need coherent and complementary strategic actions by governments and businesses, the right mix of policies and strategies for exports, value addition to raw commodities, and a greater sense of purpose to ensure a robust intra-Africa trade, to drive agricultural growth, economic diversification, and the much-needed industrialization of the continent. We must consolidate the successes so far, and with a sense of urgency, develop the signature solutions needed to deepen intra-African trade and spur impact investments needed to bring prosperity to the continent and her people. And we must do this with fearless determination. Then we shall put Africa to work and repudiate the recent culture of failure. We shall then take our rightful place in the world, especially if we achieve the difficult target of silencing the guns, without which we cannot attain our objectives of building a free, prosperous, democratic, united Africa, governed by the rule of law, respect for human rights, and the principles of democratic accountability.
Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, Wamkele Mene, noted that food insecurity, rising costs of food, inflation, and poverty have distorted Africa's goal of ending hunger by 2025. He reinforced the need to accelerate trade to make Africa a net exporter and accelerate the removal of barriers to intra-African trade to ensure the free flow of food materials.
Agriculture is the mainstay of the majority of the people of sub-Saharan Africa. Agriculture is the backbone of the economies of the majority of countries of sub-Saharan Africa.
It is possible for our continent to be self-sufficient, to provide food for herself, and to unlock opportunities, job opportunities for young Africans in the area of agriculture and agro-processing. Therefore, there is an imperative for us to accelerate trade in agricultural products, basic agricultural products, to enable our communities, the rural communities, smallholder farmers, to be part of the value chain of agricultural products trade in Africa. This is why the African Continental Free Trade Area is so critical. It positions our continent to take advantage of the resources that we have, to create jobs, to enable smallholder farmers to be part of trade in Africa. Trade in agricultural products will enable our continent to overcome this challenge of being a net food importer. It is only through efficient cross-border trade that Africa can ensure that the people of this continent who have the surplus food are able to export their huge capacities to other parts of the continent to overcome food deficits and food insecurity.
Meanwhile, former President of Tanzania, Dr. Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete, who also addressed the forum, tasked African leaders to increase investment in agriculture to enable the sector take its rightful role in Africa's development.
Agriculture is the mainstay of the majority of the people of sub-Saharan Africa. Agriculture is the backbone of the economies of the majority of countries of sub-Saharan Africa. Agriculture accounts for a large share of the GDP of our countries, and it is a major source of foreign exchange earnings. a source of food, a source of raw materials, and a major source of employment. There is no sector that employs so many people on the continent more than agriculture does. However, this important sector has not been able to perform optimally because of the many constraints impeding full exploitation of its potential. Therefore, for this forum to discuss unlocking the agricultural potential of Africa, it is the right thing to do. Mr. President, I would like to seize this opportunity to acknowledge the efforts being made by African governments, the African smallholder farmers and large-scale farmers, and other stakeholders to transform African agriculture. A lot of ground, a significant ground has been covered, and a lot has been achieved so far. However, much more needs to be done to make agriculture play its rightful role in the growth and development of African nations and the well-being and prosperity of the people of Africa. So far, so good, but it's not good enough, as evidenced by the levels of poverty in rural areas, where many of our people live and depend on agriculture.
All right, so let's go back to our earlier story where Ghana's program with the International Monetary Fund is expected to be submitted before Parliament for scrutiny and approval. And quickly, let's head to Zoom and speak to the senior finance lecturer at the University of Cape Coast, Seram Kawo, for his thoughts on this. Grateful, Mr. Kawo, you could join us on Business Live. Now, is this coming in too late for Parliament, do you think?
Thank you very much. I'm sure it's not just coming too late. Must be approved. And also, we have the situation where when the spring meeting was taking place in the US, we have parliamentary delegation made up of both sides, the leadership of parliament who were there to negotiate and talk to the external creditors forum so that they will be able to get the assurance. And for me, this is an issue Parliament was aware. It was stated in the budget. It was read to the nation, and briefings were held. What they might be asking for now is the detailed agreement that was entered into with the government of Ghana. And that is what they are looking for. And so for me, it will not add anything just to
I'm afraid with lost Seram Kawo there, we shall connect until this frozen. So basically, we're talking about the IMF program, which of course is expected to be submitted before Parliament for approval. And the Parliament, we do know, is on recess, and in the next couple of weeks, we shall get Seram Kawo to speak to the issues on this latest development coming in, and is that the program with the IMF is expected to be submitted to Parliament for scrutiny and other conditions, which of course spelled out in the program. We shall have Parliament to scrutinize those conditionalities and as well engage government on that. But we are making frantic effort to reach Seram Kawo, speak to us on the development. As and when we do have him, we shall bring him on to speak to the issues there. Let's move on to some other stories we have for you. All right, so we've got to pause for a break. When we come, there'll be more. Hello, welcome back. Let's connect now to Seram Kawo, who is on phone now to conclude his point for us. Seram, grateful you could join me once again. Now, earlier I asked whether it is too late for Parliament to, for us to go to Parliament for the House to scrutinize the deal, and you said it's not too late. Now, can Parliament push for a clause that can allow the review of some of the conditions under the program?
Okay, thank you very much. When you read the entire documentation and the program that has been sent to IMF, for me, there will not be a way for Parliament to ask for a review of some of the conditions. These conditions that have been laid in the document are conditions that are going to force the managers of the economy to do the right thing. They are conditions that are going to bring some amount of fiscal discipline into our public spending. Let us remember that this is not the first time we have gone to the IMF. And so these conditionalities that we are talking about are going to bring macroeconomic stability and restore the country to the level that we want to be, where the debt levels are unsustainable. And these conditionalities are there to ensure that we bring the debt level down up to about 55%. And a lot of the things are going to inure to the benefit of the country, and parliamentarians are going to be happy about some of them. Some of these conditionalities, they've already started implementing them already. Parliament has passed the 3 revenue bills. These bills have been passed. We already have the automatic adjustments in the fuel prices and our our utility sector. So these are not new things that they'll be aware. They are all aware of it, and they cannot pretend they don't know what is in that document.
I see. So how can Parliament ensure that the IMF program is binding, since it will still run after the elections, basically somewhere in 2025?
That is where we have the Joint Parliamentary Committee that follow the finance minister to the USA to have the meetings with the IMF and other donor or creditor partners. And so they are going to ratify that particular agreement now, because it is part of the budget that they have approved. And once it is part of the budget that they have approved, and especially minority have been asking government to go to IMF because things are not okay. So they will just ratify the document, and that will ensure that we move forward. This is not the first time that an IMF program has been entered into by one government, and successive governments have continued with that particular one. So we have a precedent that we will be able to follow.
Let's talk about the zero financing of budget, which was thrown out by Parliament. Do you think the House should push for a review?
For which one? The zero?
Zero financing, 0% financing on budget.
Yeah, so you remember that minority in Parliament raised the issue of financing from the Bank of Ghana, and it was vehemently denied, and later it came up that yes, that is something that we need to look at. This financing from Bank of Ghana, at one way or the other, affected the rate of inflation that we have in the country. And as part of the conditionalities of the IMF program is that the Bank of Ghana must have zero financing of the budget. And therefore, we see Bank of Ghana and the Ministry of Finance entering into a memorandum of understanding that they are not going to have zero financing of the budget. And then these conditionalities are also asking us to ensure that we get some amount of debt ceiling, so that we will know how much we are going to borrow at any point in time. There are issues about how much you spend and how you spend in times of emergency and crisis situation. And so these are things that will make sure that we have macroeconomic stability, our reserves are strong, our economy is vibrant and is moving. And so for me, there is no need for Parliament to go back and ask for that to be reviewed. It has been agreed, and it's part of the conditionalities that we've entered into.
All right. Thank you very much, Sir Carl, for your time here on Business Live, speaking to me live. Here's a senior finance lecturer at the University of Cape Coast, speaking to us there. Let's move on to some other stories. And a national action plan on business and human rights spearheaded by the Attorney General's Office and the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice will rate, rank, and publish businesses' respect for human rights in their dealings. Speaking at a stakeholders' consultative meeting on the NAP in the Western region, lead anchor and member of the steering committee, Victor Brobe, said the extent to which companies respect human rights and have policies in place will account for their position on the ranking table. Maxwell Agbagba has more in this report.
When perpetrators are punished, that will serve as a deterrent to others.
The Western North Regional Director of the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, Eric Kumi Inta, sharing some of the cases his office has been dealing with and how the new National Action Plan on Business and Human Rights will help address the problem.
It's a case that came to our office, and it's involved one of these hospitals. The Reverend Father, who is the director, sexually harassed an administrator, and the case came to our outfit. And what I said was that we were on the case where, in fact, the matter went to court when later on the complainant came and withdrew his case. And so we had no strength to, as it were, battle the case again because we were going to lack evidence. We've had complaints about sexual harassment, and it's not one or two. In fact, we've gone into it, and the most painful thing is that the most painful thing is that when it gets to a point where the perpetrators has to face the law, then the complainants will come and withdraw their case. But when that happens, you are stuck because you by all means or definitely need an evidence in court.
The National Action Plan on Business and Human Rights, when activated, would deal with a wide range of business-related abuses like poor remuneration, shoddy work by contractors, abuse of employees by employers, and different forms of human rights abuse in businesses in Ghana.
Now, Ghana's leading total beverage company, Guinness Ghana, hosted a celebration of all-new Gordon's Pink Spirit drink. Now, the event dubbed Gordon's Pink Soiree was tailored for selected media personalities and influencers at the Pearly Gate Gardens at East Legon here in Accra.
The newest addition to Guinness Ghana's portfolio, Gordon's Pink Spirit drink, celebrated guests at the soiree. It brought together the best trendsetters, content creators, and influencers who were immersed in an organic and unforgettable user experience. Speaking at the event, Director of Innovation and Marketing at Guinness Ghana, Estella Muzito, says her outfit prides itself in innovation in order to meet customer demand.
You know, in service of our consumers, just ensuring that we are providing you with more exciting experience, more exciting brands. We look for a way to give you a chance to enjoy a very popular brand within our stable, Gordon's, a gin that has actually the world's leading gin. Bring it here to Ghana in a way that's even more exciting, and that's in this pink, lovely pink gin form. And so what we're doing today is recognizing that launch of the brand. It's still a baby, but we've had some amazing reviews, and we hope that in the course of this evening you'll get to try it and also encourage more people to try it.
For her part, Managing Director of Guinness Ghana, Helen Weezy, used the occasion to woo enthusiasts into patronizing the drink.
It shows you're open, you're optimistic, you're really ready to take something new. And it's about being bold. Male, female, that doesn't matter. What really matters is you find your perfect mix, the way to drink it. For me, my mix, it's actually a golden stick berry with a tonic and then a few dashes of lemon in it. Great, I can recommend that.
Addressing the media, Marketing Manager Innovations at Guinness Ghana, Michael Champon, shed more light on the campaign slogan, Pink Differently.
It's all about a movement. Earlier on, or initially, we know pink to be very feminine in nature, but now it's just beyond females. It's a misgender that is driving pink. And pink is not just a color for us, it's a movement, it's the energy, it's the vibe, it's more progressive in nature. And so we encourage everyone to pink differently. And in that pink differently, we ask you to look beyond how you can stand out and how you can be differently in whatever you do.
The product is sold in many pubs, shopping malls, and restaurants across the country.
Thanks so much for watching. I am Pius Kojo Baka. There is always business stories when you log on to myjoyonline.com/business. We leave you with some international business as well as commodities.